They didn't just lock you down, they rewired the fucking world while you clapped from your window. They told you to shut your business. You did. They told you not to visit your dying parents. You obeyed. They told you science could change weekly, and you nodded along like good little bio slaves. You wore the mask. You took the shot. You showed the passport. And when you screamed into the void, your voice was flagged as harmful content. But here's the truth. No one wants to say out loud. They used a virus to teach you fear. Then they used fear to teach you compliance. And now they know exactly how far you'll bend before you break. This wasn't about health. It was about habits. Submission became a public virtue, and questioning became a sin. They didn't flatten the curve. They flattened the human spirit. Product unknown is the glitch in that system. We're here to remind you what they want you to forget. You were never fucking free, but now you might just be pissed off enough to fight back.
The reason that the minimum wage hasn't increased in decades is because the corporate elite and politicians are trying to see just how close to slavery you all get before you all tap out. And also, in the process, helping you accrue so many debts so that when they offer you something like indentured servitude contracts, you'll take them as a way of erasing your debts.
What the fuck is that? Oh shit.
There is evidence all around the world of the existence of an ancient giant species much larger than we can possibly ever imagine.
You saw Jeffrey Epstein's shapeshift, you said?
Yes. He turned
Like how? Say that one more time.
I saw Jeffrey Epstein shapeshift into a devil-like reptilian creature.
Girls are such delicious, sweet-smelling, wonderful things. I can still remember when they would be so clean and their hair done, their starched dresses, and how when they would bend over, the dresses would come up, and you'd see the panties, and
you're told the mythology that if you give blood that it is really good for you because then your body has to produce more blood. They're taking the blood and they're selling it into the world. They're not just using it for a blood bank for people who need blood transfusions.
I'm sorry, what? The head of Harvard's hospital's morgue pleads guilty to selling human body parts.
I'm not saying that the government created Hurricane Helene. What I am saying is that the government has been manipulating the weather since 1947.
Look, what if I told you every celebrity you've ever known, from musicians to actors to politicians, isn't real? They're all characters. Hollywood is way more advanced than they let on. We're not just talking about makeup or CGI. We're talking about full-blown identity fabrication on a scale that would blow your mind.
If we found out that a government agency, something run by the US government, if we found out that that department was responsible for child trafficking deliberately and in massive numbers, do you think that'd be a story that you might see on the news?
The so-called Jew who is controlling the state of Israel, those are Europeans. I'm essentially stating that they are not a Semitic people who originate in the Middle East. They're European.
I could sit here and argue for like 10 minutes about this, but I'm not going to waste my time because I just know that I'm right.
Each condom contains about 1.5 milliliters of lubricant on average. If a woman is intimate 300 times a year, she's putting into her uterus over half a liter of this toxin into her body every single year.
And I don't understand, baby, why can't you?
this is a bit scary. It's completely new territory.
I mean, will we still need humans?
Not for most things. We'll decide.
I mean, one thing life taught you: if you take your top lip and connect it to your bottom lip, you will shut the fuck up. Sometimes shutting the fuck up is the best thing you can do.
Blood donation industry is a real, actual industry that you do not want to get sucked into. Now, if people were to donate blood, they would donate a quarter of a vial only of blood. Make sure you never give any more than that. Your immune system lives inside your cardiovascular system, inside your blood. When they take your blood in a larger volume, you're actually diminishing your immune strength. Many people get ill after they give a whole bunch of blood. And then you're told the mythology that if you give blood that it's really good for you because then your body has to produce more blood. They're taking the blood and they're selling it into the world. They're not just using it for a blood bank for people who need blood transfusions. So be very careful. If everyone was donating a quarter of a vial once in a blue moon, they would have more than enough blood in their blood banks. And it would be actually for what it's supposed to be for, which is blood transfusions, not something that they can extract very important properties out of your blood and sell into the market. It's just ridiculous. Even for insurance policies, don't let them take any more than a quarter of a vial. They tell you, oh no, we need 5 vials to do a test. That is not true. They only need the tiniest amount, and the lab only will ever use a tiny amount. So what are they doing with the rest of it? Are they throwing it in the garbage? Not a chance. Maintain your blood. It's your blood. And yes, if you want to give a little bit, that's fine, but no more than that.
Gatorade. Lunchable. Go-Gurt. String cheese. A mandarin orange. Specially requested a pack of Bluey gummies. And then we're going to give them both some Chex Mix. A napkin and a note each.
Yesterday, RFK Jr. at his 100-day address, he's been in power now, he's had his role for 100 days, so he had a press conference. One of the things he talked about, among others, one of the things he talked about was that HHS, the Department of Health and Human Services, a government-run agency, was deliberately trafficking children, deliberately playing a role in the trafficking of children. And nobody's talking about it. Again, a reporter didn't have to break the story. It didn't take like some sleuth to go and figure this out. He said it at the press conference, and still nobody's talking about it. Nobody. My guess is I'm probably going to move way down in your algorithm just for talking about this. I've had 2 videos this week that one went to 100,000 views, another one over 65,000. And I'll bet you, if you don't already follow me, you will never see this video. Ever. This is deliberate covering. There's a deliberate cover-up of what should be the biggest story on earth.
Has anybody seen Justin Bieber's Instagram? He posted shipping containers with a photo of a baby on a blanket underneath. Captioned, I got anger issues too, but I want to grow and not react so much. Yo. In the same post, there's a picture of him as a child. And who remembers a few months back when there was demands to open the shipping containers? Look at the location, Diddy's house, and look what's right here. Look. Evergreen. And who remembers this episode of Dexter? Evergreen. Remember Harry found him in the shipping container? Bro.
The Titanic was an inside job.
Yes, it was. The Titanic was sunk in 1912 because the guy by the name of Mr. Uster, who was against the Federal Reserve, he was such a strong figure that they put a bullet in him to start a war. Yeah. So they can't do that. So they built a ship and they made sure all the most important people were on this ship. And at the very, very last minute, J.P. Morgan and all of those guys exited the ship. The ship sinks. 1913, they go to Jekyll Island. They finish the deal. The Federal Reserve is basically born. After they got the Federal Reserve in 1913, now they had the money they needed to start World War I in 1914. So it goes from this: Titanic, Fed, World War I.
Under the Earth, there are 7 more planets that are disks.
What?
Yeah.
7 flat worlds?
Pretty much. I'm the only one who can show you from astrology, from the Bible, and from the East, and from all traditions, how they all syncretize and concur that the Earth is a stationary horizontal plane. You have to do it like that. If you don't do it like that, you can't do it properly. You can't just have one angle. You can't just say, oh, all the scientific experiments that have been conducted prove, George Airy, James Bradley, Sagnac, Michelson Morley, they all prove that the Earth is stationary, and that's your one angle. You can't just have one angle. I'm coming from the Jewish tradition. I'm coming from Bhagavad Gita. I'm showing how the Bible proves it with great etymological proofs, and no one else is doing that. I do that and all the other angles.
Is this a dimension? Are we living in an energy force that has multiple layers?
You know the Kabbalistic tree, right? There it is there, the 10 Sephiroth, your 10 fingers. There's Kether, and there's Malkuth, the earth. So is it a dimension? Yes, it is. But it's all these things, from Kether to earth, which is ether to earther, same word. So if you're asking, what's the earth? Well, it's just ether in a gross, more solidified form.
I believe a cataclysmic event such as an asteroid colliding with Earth is responsible for petrifying these giants, covering them with water, rock and ash and instantly freezing them in time. Just look at the size and detail of some of these structures, guys. Now there's just absolutely no way that water and air erosion over time has left these rock faces in these formations. Everything points to their existence being erased instantaneously, and the rock formations left behind tell the true story of their past. It's not just giant rock formations of humans either. All over the world there's evidence of giant animals being petrified also. Huge beasts on a grand scale that once roamed this earth. Giant mammals, reptiles and birds can be found all over the world in these petrified rock formations. Now, skeptics will say that these rock formations are just a naturally occurring thing and we're just seeing the faces and shapes in them that we want to see. But I'm calling bullshit on that. There is no denying exactly what these animals are. I don't even need to say the animal name and you already know. Look at the detail in the way the rock is formed and compare that to its real-life animal example. Now, there is some speculation that the pink salt mines is actually the petrified flesh of some of these giants harvested from the earth. These photos and videos show the similarities and truth that these salt rocks were once.
You guys, it was brought to my attention that NASA is taking down tons of its social media websites. Here's the list. And for shits and giggles, I wanted to see exactly how much revenue space gets from the clothing industry, the gaming industry, the music industry, animation industry, and the film industry. Well, they have to shut it down because cartoons and CGI are not reality. NASA isn't trimming the fat, they are covering their tracks. When CGI is your telescope and Photoshop is your lens, the last thing you want is millions of eyes watching you too closely. The curtain is falling and people aren't buying the space fantasies anymore.
And I went and had the jab. Within several hours, I was shaking like a leaf. And I went to bed early and I couldn't get warm. And I thought, am I running a fever? I was boiling hot and sweating, and then I was cold. I was out for the count for about a week. I then started to find out more. And it was about that time that I ran into somebody and he told me about a channel where I could find lots of information and a lot of support. And so I logged on to that. There's a chap called Robin Minotti who runs a channel, and it's for anybody that's concerned or is looking in my case, looking for support. For me, I'd felt so alone up until that point. I really couldn't talk to my family and my kids. My teenagers it seemed like they'd been brainwashed. And I could feel that everywhere. I could feel alienation because I held a different view. So I was trying to keep my mouth shut, but I was following the channel avidly, and bit by bit I realized that I probably shouldn't have had the first jab, but then I was offered the second. And I thought, well, what's the point in, stopping now? So I went and had the second, and then it got really bad. When you know that nothing will work, there's no medication you can take that will help, is very, very frightening. And the worst thing is you don't know when it's going to wear off or when it's going to go away. So that was what frightened me the most, medically, health-wise. I mean, to touch the guitar, to play the guitar is not fun, and it's something I do, then when I put it down, it's there until I go to bed, and I take sleeping pills because I can't sleep because of the pain, and it's not a good way to live. But and it's not all due to the vaccine, but the vaccine took my immune system and just shook it around again, and that's still going on. So,
hey guys, off-grid Dom here. I was just notified. I'm a truck driver, in case anybody wasn't aware. So I got connections with the ports and the railroads and other drivers. 51 truck drivers, 51 trucks who were delivering goods. They were on their way to deliver supplies down to the devastated areas of Hurricane Helene. Well, they pulled into a truck stop to get fuel. Every single one of their trucks, all their tires were slashed. Every one of them. Yet, all the other drivers that had nothing to do with what they were doing, they were okay. I'm sorry, if you don't see a problem with that, does anybody else find that highly questionable?
I was driving my Suburban through this four-way, and I stopped right there, and then this guy was coming out of the Wendy's parking lot, and I, eased on out, and he just blew through the stop sign because he was shoving French fries in his mouth. It pissed me off. I showered down like that, T-boned him right there in the four-way.
So you hit him?
I hit him good, yeah.
So whose fault do you think it is?
Well, hell, it was his. He blew through the damn four-way.
So you hit him, and it's his fault. How does that make sense?
Well, it makes sense because in this country, when you do dumb shit, you got to pay the consequences for it. And that's what I drive a Suburban for. Is when you do dumb shit in front of me, I'm gonna hit you like a damn army tank.
So nothing should happen to you. Everything should happen to him, and you should hit him again.
Do you think that blowing through a four-way stop is a good idea? I don't think so. No. I don't think so.
What first caught my attention with Helene was the shift in the storm's projected path. One day, it looked like it would hit my town. The next day, it had shifted east. I then noticed an odd flight path of NOAA 42, the aircraft being flown, a Lockheed Martin Orion P-3. This prompted me to look at previous uses for the P-3, where I discovered that they were used in the 1960s to manipulate Hurricane Camille in a, quote, weather war on Cuba. Now I know this sounds out there, but as we begin to see more and more the terrible things our government has done in the past, is it really so far-fetched? Here are the projections from the 23rd of September. A large spread traveling the Alabama-Georgia line and ending up in Illinois. On the 24th, projections shift slightly east and the storm is projected to finish in Indiana. On the morning of the 25th, the path shifts back west and shows to be finishing in western Kentucky. That evening, a P-3 conducts a 6-hour operation inside the developing storm. The next morning, on the 26th, the path shows to have shifted slightly east again, now finishing in northwestern Tennessee. The evening of the 26th, the same P-3 conducts operations throughout Hurricane Helene as it makes landfall, and the storm's actual path shifts further east, finishing in northeastern Tennessee. What would the government's motivations possibly be to modify a storm?
You use condoms and you think it's safe. What if it's slowly poisoning your body? A 2014 Danish study found over 100 different toxic ingredients in condoms. Hormone disruptors, carcinogens, glycerine, parabens, petroleum derivatives, phthalates, and nonoxynol, a spermicide that damages the uterus wall. Each condom contains about 1.5 milliliters of lubricant on average. If a woman is intimate 300 times a year, she's putting into her uterus over half a liter of this toxin into her body every single year. So my question to you is this really safe, or are we just misinformed?
Every celebrity is just a role played by an elite group of actors using crazy advanced Hollywood techniques. I mean, think about it. Makeup artists, voice coaches, body doubles, deepfakes. Hollywood's had this tech for decades. They can make anyone look like anyone. What you think is a celebrity's natural appearance, it's a costume. They're trained to play roles, not just in movies, but in life. This whole thing is to control us, man. Celebrities influence how we think, what we wear, what we care about. They're there to sell ideas, lifestyles, keep us distracted from real problems. And when their character expires, whether through scandal, old age, or even deletes, those actors just take on a new role. Some of the biggest names today could have been playing different characters for decades. You ever notice how when one big pop star fades out of the spotlight, another one who looks suspiciously similar pops up? Like, where did that person come from? They're always just there. What if they didn't fade away? They just switched characters.
Did you not know?
What was it? No. I did not know that, but no, I did not.
Well, do you know what?
No, tell me more, because I hear all about this, the reptilians and the greys and the shapeshifting and all that, but this is, wow.
So if someone else told me this, I would think they were mad. Sorry to swear again. If someone else told me this, I would think they were mad.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it happened to me and I saw it. And I swear on my family's life, I swear on everyone and everything I love's lives, that I saw this man turn into something else in front of my eyes.
Cedric Lodge, 57, admitted to selling human remains from 2018 to 2020, making tens of thousands of dollars selling organs and body parts across multiple states. People would donate cadavers for the science units at Harvard for research and also medical students to practice surgeries on. And after they were done doing that, Lodge would then take those bodies, dissect them, and sell off the different parts on the black market. He did this with his wife, Denise, who also pleaded guilty, and Lodge is facing up to 10 years in prison. They were selling hands, dissected heads, all sorts of body parts, including faces. I think people need to look more into that because we've seen a whole lot of different faces lately. Harvard said that this was a huge betrayal, but you have to wonder how nobody noticed that this was happening.
Would you tell us a little bit about your family?
I've been very fortunate in family. I've had 2 marriages, both happy. In my first marriage, I had 2 lovely daughters, and I had the joy in that marriage of girls. And girls are such delicious, sweet-smelling, wonderful things. I can still remember when they would be so clean and their hair done, their starched dresses, and how when they would bend over, the dresses would come up, and you'd see the panties, and they're just, little girls are just totally beautiful things, and I was happy. I was lucky with my girls in that they never had the problems that sometimes some people seem to have with girls. Not that my daughters didn't have their own problems of dating and so on, but it was never a problem for their parents.
He took all the casinos and all the millions and millions of dollars from these folks. Okay? And so he took all of that land from the American corporations and closed those corporations down and drove them out of his country. Those who wanted to stay and work with them, he was willing to let them stay. So he came to America before he ever went to Russia. Told America he wanted to build a democracy, but it had to be a democracy based on social justice. Well, since America is a racist country who wasn't providing the blacks here social justice, they weren't going to support Fidel Castro and his revolution to provide social justice in Cuba.
When you sleep, your brain gets washed with spinal fluid, as can be seen here. First, oxygen-rich blood, which is shown in red, exits the brain. Then, a wave of cerebrospinal fluid, shown in blue, flows in. This cerebrospinal fluid plays a role in clearing harmful proteins and toxic waste from the brain. This discovery shows that during deep sleep, slow waves of electrical activity are followed by waves of blood and cerebrospinal fluid, which alternate in a cycle lasting about 20 seconds. Researchers were able to use functional magnetic resonance imaging to view this process in real time. The study observed this phenomenon in healthy young adults, combining real-time brain scans with a computer model to explore the fluid dynamics involved. Without enough sleep, this cleaning cycle is interrupted, preventing the brain from efficiently removing these harmful substances. Over time, this buildup can contribute to cognitive decline, memory problems, and an increased risk of neurodegenerative diseases. Inadequate sleep leaves the brain unable to perform this critical maintenance, allowing toxins to accumulate and impair brain function. Sleep deprivation impairs cognitive functions such as memory, attention, and decision-making. When you don't get enough sleep, the brain struggles to consolidate new information, making it harder to form and retain memories. Sleep is crucial for processing and organizing thoughts, so without adequate rest, your ability to focus and make sound decisions diminishes.
Hey, we took a call saying that you might be sleeping out here.
No, I was laying down for a minute.
Oh, okay.
Laying on my back.
Oh, okay.
Looking at the sky.
Okay. You got your ID with you? Okay. What's your name, ma'am?
Am I doing something illegal?
Well, we got called here for suspicious activity, so I got an ID.
Is that a misdemeanor or felony?
Huh?
Is that a misdemeanor or felony?
Is it a misdemeanor or a felony? Well, it could be a misdemeanor if you failure to identify yourself.
Well, unless I'm breaking a law, I'm not going to ID.
Okay, so you're choosing to get arrested instead of just giving me your name.
I'm choosing to not break a law, which I'm not doing. Am I breaking the law?
By not giving me your identification, yes, you are.
That's not the way it works.
Yes, that's interference.
Are you detaining me or am I free to go?
No, you're being detained.
For what?
Because we're investigating suspicious.
You give me reasonable, articulable suspicion.
We got called here by a third party for an individual sleeping by the flagpole.
Okay.
You're the only person here by the flagpole.
Did you see me sleeping?
No, you just admitted to me that you were.
I never said anything about sleeping. I said I was laying on my back and I was looking at the sky.
Okay.
Is that illegal?
No, but we still got called here, so we got to investigate it.
Well, you call him back and you tell him that I wasn't sleeping.
Okay, so are you going to give me your name or
I'm
not?
not.
Okay, stand up, turn around. You're under arrest.
You made a claim that all Jews are European.
I just want to clarify so you know what I mean. The so-called Jew who is controlling the state of Israel, those are Europeans. I'm essentially stating that they are not a Semitic people who originate in the Middle East. They're European, just like your current prime minister who's changed his name from something sounding more Polish, more Eastern European. And if you track the history of a lot of people in that administration, they all changed their names to sound more Hebrew. Is that true? Is it true?
Absolutely.
It is true, exactly, because they're Europeans masquerading.
So a Zionist posted this on Twitter, asking people what comes to mind when they see the Israeli flag, and I want to read to you guys some of the responses. I will never forget the small Palestinian boy who was asked what he was carrying in his backpack. He opened and showed the journalist the remaining bits and pieces of his baby brother's body. That's what comes to mind. Gaza was the first time I held a baby's brain in my hand. I remember the mother who brought the remains of her children in a bag and took it to the doctor and said she was in such a deluded state. She asked him what he could do for her daughter. I remember Hind Rajab's phone call. She was only 6 years old. The 6 preemie babies who died in the hospital alone in incubators. The other little boy who was carrying his brother, and someone asked him, "Is he heavy?" And he responded, "He's not heavy, he's just my brother." The little boy chasing after the water tank, trying to get drips of water because he hasn't had water in days. The father who amputated his son's leg without anesthesia and then watched his son die in front of him from the pain. All of that. And then to come on this app every day and see people from this country justifying it and cheering it on, and hearing the statistic that 80% of the people in the country support what's happening. And knowing deep inside of yourself that the world has failed.